opportunity to recognize the candidates at the conclusion of tonight's event. Now, you might have noticed QR codes around the walls of the room. You also might notice a little slip of paper on your chair labeled slido.com. You want to check those out, and you want to pull out your phones because those are the audience participation element of tonight's event. Throughout the event, we will be asking you, the audience, to respond to a series of poll questions. And so as I go through the questions for the candidates, we will put the poll question up on the screen for you to respond to in real time. So get your phones ready, slido.com. You can use the QR code that's on the back of your program to go directly there, or you can point your web browser, mobile browser to slido.com and enter the number 29091903. And now, let's begin with our opening statements, and we will start with Mark Greer.
Thank you for having me. Ladies and gentlemen, we are at a critical time in Akron's future. We are at a crossroads. We have 20% of our Akronites telling us that they're thinking about leaving, and a majority saying that Akron is going in the wrong direction. And one thing I know is that you do not right the ship by keeping the same people in charge who have got us into that storm. It's time for us to bring real, tangible change to all of Akron's neighborhoods. I spent my time working at the City of Akron as the Great Streets Administrator and the Small Business Program Manager, and I learned firsthand that you don't know what you're not near. I spent time in the community, near the people who are adversely affected. And I'm running for one reason: to make sure that our forgotten neighborhoods and marginalized communities are finally brought out of the shadows and put in the forefront where they deserve to be. If you support me on May 2nd, I promise you, I will not rest or relent until Akron's potential becomes its promise. I've put myself on the line to be on this stage. And you want a leader who has the courage to stand up and not sit back despite of any consequences or any turmoil that comes his way. I'm asking for your support. Vote Mark Greer on May 2nd.
Mr. Greer, thank you very much. Let us now turn to Shamus Malik.
Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. I was born and raised here in Akron. I sit in front of you in part because of my Akron Public Schools education that I'm so proud of. I left for college and law school, but I moved back home in 2016 because I love this community, because I wanted to serve the community that did so much for me, and then my mom spent 20 years serving as a teacher at the University of Akron. Now, I've worked as a lawyer for the city. I've worked for the past 3 years as a city councilman. But when I look around our city, I have a lot of hope for it. But there are a lot of bright spots out there. But for decades, for longer than I've been alive, we've lost population. And we've lost population while the population of Summit County has been flat, because people have moved to the suburbs for safety and for better schools. We in our community go from crisis to crisis to crisis to crisis, from safety to housing to education to jobs to other things. What we lack in this community, the reason I am running for mayor, is because we need a comprehensive shared vision for where we're going. So on our website, malikforakron.com, we've released that on those 4 issues I mentioned: safety, getting officers out there on the streets, right? Housing, focusing on infill development. But the most important thing is building a city government that's open, collaborative, and responsive, so that every person in this room and in every room in Akron sees that they're part of the solution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now, Keith Mills.
So I, too, have been born and raised in Akron. I was born in City Hospital, and I've spent pretty much my entire life here in Akron, Ohio. I'm raising my family in Akron, Ohio. I've bought houses in Akron, Ohio. Like, I'm completely connected. I went to the University of Akron not once but twice. So I definitely have that connection. You know, getting into this race, I was so tired of just the same mindset, different faces. We really need to think about who we are electing and what they actually stand for. Do you want somebody who's actually truthful, who you can actually call and give your peace of mind to? Or do you want somebody who you elect, put on a pedestal, and they just go away? I am a citizen, just like you. It's just that so happened a little voice in my head said, now's the time. Get back in it. Just do it. You have an opportunity that we've not had in 40 years, roughly, to actually come out and make a huge difference. So I was like, all right, filed paperwork, got, blessed enough to be allowed on, and I followed the yellow brick road, and I'm here. Any literature you get has my phone number, goes right to my phone. I want transparency back in our government. I want somebody you can hold accountable, someone that is actually for you, all of you. You can't make everybody happy, but at least you can listen to them and try and find some common ground. So keep me in mind and definitely look me up at millsforakron.com. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mills. I will now invite Tara Mosley to deliver her opening statement.
Can you hear me? Okay, there we go. Well, thank you, and good evening to you all. I am Tara Mosley, the proud representative of Ward 5 for the city of Akron. I'm running because of you all in this room. The ward that I represent looks like this room. The ward that I represent was purposely cut to put everyone who was impoverished in one ward. And what was meant for evil is going to turn out for good. For the last 9 years, I have proudly represented the residents of Ward 5, starting at the top of North Hill, coming through downtown Akron, cutting through East Akron, and touching South Akron. My ward touches every part of this city except for the West Akron community. I have been able to bring in $1.2 billion by having relationships in Ward 5. Those relationships I will carry to the mayor's office to make sure each and every community across this city is not forgotten. There are too many neighborhoods that have been forgotten. There are too many small business owners who have been forgotten. And we have crime running rampant in those neighborhoods that have been forgotten. So I'm running because of you all, because you said you were tired of not being listened to. I hear you. So on May 2nd, I ask you all to stand with me as we put people first, we put our neighborhoods first, we put our children and our grandchildren first. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now turn to Josh Schaefer.
Good evening. I'm Josh Schaefer, the most progressive candidate in this race. I apologize in advance. I'm a man of faith. I'm Jewish, and so I'll be leaving early to join my wife a little late at the synagogue for Passover tonight. So I'm not able to stay the whole time. But I do want to get a couple things out there about my agenda. First of all, I too have a website. It's joshgets.us. Josh gets us with a dot. Also, because I'm a working class person and I represent working class people, if you can afford to donate, please visit donate.joshgets.us. So I have a Bachelor of Science in Political Science, a minor in Criminal Justice, a minor in Psychology, a certificate of Applied Politics. I've interned in the United States Senate for Senator Brown, where I worked with constituents, with staffers, and with other senators. I've worked in Jerusalem, Israel, in a sustainable interfaith organization. And I've had 15 years of private sector management experience. So the bottom line is, if you like where things are now, if you think that we're in a good place, then vote for the people that got us here. If you feel like you're being listened to, then vote for one of the candidates here that is an existing politician. But if you're looking for something new, if you're looking for fresh, bold ideas from somebody who has the education and the background to get things done, then I'm your candidate. Remember, Josh Schaefer will make Akron safer, so vote for me on May 2nd.
Thank you, Josh. And thank you for taking the time to join us tonight. We'll now turn to Marco Somerville.
Thank you very much. It's indeed a pleasure to be here in my old ward, the 3rd Ward. And this is the reason why I ran. In this particular ward, all the schools were closed. After the schools were closed, they put all the public housing in this neighborhood. It was Edgewood across the street. It's the housing over here on Thornton Street, We go on the top of the hill. We have Saferstein 1 and 2. We have Byers 1 and 2. So purposely, all the public housing was dumped in this neighborhood, and I thought it was wrong, and I had to change that narrative. One of the main reasons, another reason why I ran was the fact that 485 kids were being bused out of this neighborhood on a daily basis, and I advocated, and I got a brand new school, which is the Helen Arnold School, which is right next door. And the reason I did that because 2 kids out of that 485 got killed trying to get home because they got sick at school, and they got on the Metro bus and ran in front of the bus, and the car hit both of them and killed them. That's why I made sure that the school was here so kids would not have to be bused. If you look across the street, Edgewood had a number of issues. I had it torn all the way down and rebuilt. In the last 10 years, we've had only 1 murder at Edgewood. And that's why I ran, and that's why I still want to be the mayor of the city, because I have much more to do.
Thank you very much. I'm going to pause before we go to Jeff Wilhite to remind you all to have your phones ready, because we're going to be coming to the first poll question in just a second. And so now, Jeff Wilhite.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to be with you tonight. It truly is a pleasure for me to be here. I'm a life resident of the city of Akron, a 3rd generation. My grandparents came here, my grandfather in 1917 and my grandmother in 1918 from the Ukraine. So my eyes are overseas a lot right now because that's where my family is from and the tragedy that's going on there. I'm running for mayor because there are 3 distinct issues that I've heard from residents of the city that we need to address. First and foremost is safe neighborhood, safe community across the board. We need to make sure that our community collectively comes together and decides how we want to have a safe community. That's critically important. The second issue is housing. I currently serve as executive director of a program called Family Promise. We help homeless families with children get into sustainable housing situations. We are faced with a 49% rental rate in this city. We can talk about all these wonderful programs to grow the population, but until and unless we address the affordable housing issue and the awful eviction rates that are happening in this community because out-of-town landlords come in, buy up property, and treat everybody here awful. We've got to change that if we're going to move the city in a positive direction. And another key reason that I'm running for mayor is we have an aging population here in the city and the county. It's a national issue, but we have got to make sure that we can keep our senior citizens in their own homes as much as we possibly can. Because think about it, you guys, that's where they've spent their lives.
Excuse me, Mr. Wilhite, your time is,
sorry.
You've hit your time.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. But you're gonna have a chance to expand on that question, on that particular statement in just a moment. Let's go to our first poll question. So remember, have your phones handy. What qualities are you looking for in the next mayor of Akron? We have a word cloud here. And so we'll give you a couple seconds if you haven't already had a chance to respond. And I will say right now, the number 1 word on the screen, transparency. The number 1 word on the screen, transparency. Very good. Thank you all so much for participating in poll question number 1. Now we're going to begin with our questions. And again, our questions are aligned with the key priorities of the Urban League of Greater Akron. And so we want to turn to housing affordability. Renter-occupied households are increasingly spending more than 30% of their gross income on housing costs. The U.S. Census Bureau reported last year that nearly 50% of renter-occupied households meet that threshold, and more than 25% spend more than half of their income on housing. A 2020 study conducted by the Akron-Cleveland Board of Realtors indicates our local percentages are consistently higher than the national average. In addition, some local families are simultaneously experiencing an increase in income and a decrease in public benefits due to or following the COVID-19 pandemic. Paradoxically, that actually makes their financial situation worse. So here's the question. What steps will you take to address livable wages and housing affordability to ensure that those who have been historically marginalized have access to opportunity? And we will begin with Shamus Malik.
Sorry about that. So we have an eviction crisis in this community because we've seen more people go from owning homes to renting homes, right? 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it was 45%, now it's 55%. People are getting squeezed by the market. Now, as a city, we have a lot of opportunity to help with housing, but unfortunately, the city has spent a lot of its staff time focused on higher-end developments on the outskirts and the edges of town, closer to Bath. And I know because I represent Northwest Akron, and that's where a lot of the development's been. We've put property tax abatements on the edges of town. On one side of the street on Akron Peninsula in Cuyahoga Falls, there's no tax abatement. On the other side, it's Akron, there is a tax abatement. We're leaving money on the table. And we're not spending our staff time working on infill development in our neighborhoods, right? So we have to focus on that. And then when it comes to workforce, we have these amazing CLC centers. We can put workforce and skills programs right here in these CLCs that are proximate to people, can help get people on their feet.
Thank you very much. Now to Keith Mills. 1 minute.
Only 1 minute. Okay, so basically, and I want you guys to come talk to me afterwards. Basically, I was a renter my entire life until I was about in my 20s, my mid-20s. And in order for me to get the opportunity to even buy a house, I had to get one at 15% interest, okay? Just to get the opportunity, okay? So, you know, through all this strife and going through everything, what we will do under my leadership is I will start buying houses that are on, I have a thing for a landlord list, okay? Where houses are in Akron, 50 grand, 30 grand. We're gonna pick those up and we're gonna sell them back to you at cost, back to the citizens at cost, okay? And what's also nice is some of the dilapidated houses, I can actually get our young folk to go and pursue a trade, to actually work with their hands, okay? I'm talking about plumbers, carpenters, you know, union people who are gonna be supervising so they can get a leg up. That is what I would do to try and make the housing affordable and, you know, reachable, attainable, okay? We don't need any more $200,000 houses that none of us can afford.
Okay.
Let's be legit.
You're at time. Thank you so much. Tara Mosley.
Well, thank you for that question. Before we could even talk about housing, we have to talk about a livable wage. $15 is not even a livable wage anymore here in this country. For me, I think that we need to get to $24 an hour. That's a livable wage. So when we talk about people being evicted, they're being evicted because they don't have a livable wage. They're not able to buy a home because they are not making a livable wage. So we first have to start with making sure that the resources are there for them to be able to pay their rent, for them to be able to put food on the table, for them to be able to take care of their children. And that's not going to happen if we don't discuss the main issue here, and that's a livable wage.
Thank you very much. Marco Somerville.
Well, we have to find a way to make sure that people can make a living. And there's a lot of ways that people don't know that needs to be discussed in this community. And one thing I would like to express to young people is the fact of apprenticeship programs. We're looking at particularly maybe like the carpenters or the electrical unions. They are looking for young, particularly African-American people to get in those programs. The beauty about those programs are that if you go through a 4-year program, say at the Carpenters Union, after 4 years, you're only 3 credits short of having a college degree. On top of that, you will come out making probably close to around $70,000 a year. And the other issue is you have no debt. You have no debt at the end of the day, and that's something that you want to do. Affordable housing in this neighborhood is one of the things that we did. We tore down Lane School. We built brand new homes there. We tore down homes on Bisson, put brand new affordable homes there.
Mr. Somerville, you're at time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff Wilhite.
The first thing that we absolutely have to do is we've got to address housing because we need someplace to live before you can do anything else. That's the very basic need. We've got to go after these landlords that are, quite frankly, taking advantage of so many people in this community. The eviction rates are way too high. We've got to go after these folks who swoop in, buy these houses, don't do anything to them, but they raise the rent. That's all they do going forward. We also have to get to a point where we stop the evictions going on to the families. I have families at Family Promise that come to me and they show me that they have paid the rent. They show me the canceled checks. But what happens is the knucklehead landlord doesn't pay the taxes, doesn't pay the mortgage, and guess what? The eviction goes to the family. That's wrong. We've got to address that and stop that practice so that people can be in homes, afford them, focus on job training, focus on opportunities in the community to earn more. But ladies and gentlemen, we all have to have a place to live. And until we address that issue, all the other things fall off the table.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, this is my poll disclaimer, so get those phones ready. Second question is coming up, and now we'll turn to Mark Greer.
So there's a reason why we always hear about the need for affordable housing every election cycle. It's because our politicians have not done the actual work and policy to make affordable housing a reality. And I'm talking about real zoning reform. This is why I've been talking about this from the start of this campaign. Because until we systemically tear down the zoning reform that we know not only is antiquated, but has been historically discriminatory, we are not going to see enough housing options that people can afford. So what that means is not having the majority of Akron zoned R1 single family, but implementing mixed-use zoning so we can have non-traditional housing options so people can have pathways to home ownership. Things like tiny homes, container homes, modular homes, row homes, multiplexes. There's a whole missing middle housing unit market that we are not even touching here in Akron. And if we give people the options, the prices come down. It's not that people can't afford a house, it's just that they don't have the option of the home that they can actually afford.
We're at time. Thank you. All right. We are going to our next poll question. And so think about this. There are no Republicans running for, well, no, we got the wrong question. Let me shift a little bit here. All right. What issues should Akron's next mayor address in their first year? Rank those issues from the top issue to the bottom. And we'll give you all a couple seconds if you haven't had a chance to respond to do that. It's holding pretty steady, folks. The number one issue, police accountability and public safety, followed by economic development, followed by housing, followed by community violence, youth initiatives and programs, and substance, alcohol and drug abuse. Thank you so much. All right, we are now going to turn to economic development. As mayor, how will you build a supportive ecosystem for Black-owned businesses in Akron? What do you see that's currently working, and what will you do to enhance access to capital and upward mobility in the Black community? And we'll start with Keith Mills.
So that's a, hello? Hello? All right. So that is a tough one to answer in a minute. There are so many different things to answer. So what I would do in to uplift that, and I think what is working good is some of the resources that are out there. However, what I think is not working good is actually letting people know that those resources are there. They're almost in name-only resources. One of the things that I'm working on right now to uplift businesses for minorities, but for everybody, is looking at ways that the city of Akron can actually process credit card payments. Every time you swipe a card, you're charged upwards of 3%. If you take credit cards and you're a small business, that really hits your bottom line, doesn't it? So we're looking at ways to actually circumnavigate that as a city. It's going to be kind of complicated, but it's actually going to be legitimate and sustainable. So that's one way that we're going to try and uplift small business owners.
Thank you very much. We'll next go to Tara Mosley.
Thank you. Economic development is working for a certain segment of this community. Has anyone ever heard of line item 56? It's working for certain people. But the ones who are being forgotten in the process are our entrepreneurs and our small businesses. They are left out of the equation. They're offered loans, but the medium-sized businesses are offered grants. Shouldn't be that way. We're talking about entrepreneurs and small business owners who are trying to make their way, and there's no resources there for them but loans. But we have a group who benefits from this city, and it is not our minority entrepreneurs and small business owners.
Thank you very much. We'll next hear from Marco Somerville.
Well, being a small business owner myself and starting a business from scratch, I know the difficulty it is to get a bank to give you a loan. But you need to look around what's going on in the neighborhoods and in the community. And if you look at all the work that's getting to take place, well, that's the work with the tunnel, the bridge projects all around the city that are taking place. Those are great opportunities for someone to go into business for themselves and tap into some of that money, because these jobs are going to be around for the next 20 years. A lot of these projects are going to take a long time for them to come to fruition, and it's a great opportunity for someone to see that and take advantage of it. There are people who are doing that. One would be G. Stevens. He has a construction company. He's doing a great job, and not only that, he's bringing in young people to work with him, giving them opportunities to work in his firm, and also putting money back into this community. Those are the kind of businesses that we need to come back into this community so they can reach down and pick other people up.
Thank you,
But
Mr.
there is
Somerville.
hope.
Thank you very much. Jeff Wilhite.
I think the most important thing that the next mayor can do is support businesses that are right here. Business retention is going to be an absolute focus of my economic development, but I'm going to come to the community for the answers, and one of the answers is right here at the Urban League. The Urban League did a fantastic program where they put some folks on a bus. They took them out to local businesses right here in the community. And the reason it worked, ladies and gentlemen, is because we showed who was out there. We drive by our businesses every day. We don't know what goes on in those businesses. But when you show up at their front door, learn what they do, buy their product, buy their service, that's economic development. That's giving folks who take the risk to become business owners the opportunity to not only grow their business, but hire other folks. It's an outstanding program. Another program that I'm going to blow up as much as I can is the MCAP program from right here at the Urban League. It's focused on minority businesses, women-owned businesses, LGBTQ businesses. That's our economic future. It's all of us collectively.
Thank you so much. And now we'll have Mark Greer.
So I worked firsthand with small businesses in the Black and minority community. And let me say this, we can't tap ourselves on the back about one minority company which gets 85% of the contracts at this city. That is not equity for the Black business community at all, okay? First of all.
Please, thank you.
But we have to make sure that we are touching the small businesses. Look, we had $145 million of ARPA money, and you know how much of it went to our small businesses? $1 million. We paid $1.3 million to the consultants out of DC to tell us how to spend the money. So what message does that send? And then of that $1 million, this administration said, you know what? We're not going to allow sole proprietors to be a part of that assistance. And sole proprietors make up the majority of our minority-owned businesses. This is what has to change, because there are great small businesses in our community, things like Street Craftery,
we're at time.
the candy shop.
We're at time. We're at time. Thank you. And now Shamus Malik.
I have to go after Mark, and he just took all my points. But look, last week I voted on an $800 million city budget. Over the years, the amount of money from our city contracting that has gone to the black community has been abysmally low. Right? And when you look at Section 56, you see that a lot of that money is spent in no-bid consulting contracts. And when you no-bid contracts, they go to the people who have always had their foot in the door. Right? You're not giving folks an opportunity. Now, Mark is exactly right. We got $145 million from the federal government. The priorities were made by one person. The mayor cannot be the king. It can't be a top-down government. You have to elect someone who's willing to listen to everyone, who has a track record of doing that, and then can get things done. That is what I have done on city council. That is what I will do as mayor.
Thank you. Time for the next poll question. The Democratic primary is May 2nd. There are no Republicans running at this time. Did you know that whoever wins on May 2nd is likely to be the next mayor? I'm going to give everyone a moment to answer. We have a well-informed group. 84% of you see that, yes, primary day is, for all intents and purposes, election day for mayor in the city of Akron. We're going to now move to our third question of the night, and this question is focused on public safety. There are segments of the community who believe there has been a lack of transparency and accountability from the Akron Police Department in the death of Jalen Walker. The mayor represents the executive branch of the city. The chief of police reports to the mayor. How will you, as mayor, hold the police department accountable to protect and serve all citizens and to ensure transparency in their processes? And if you find issues with accountability and transparency within the department, how would you address that with the chief of police? And we will start with Tara Mosley.
Well, thank you for that question. We first have to have an open and honest dialogue with the community, and that has not happened at all. I don't believe that we would be here in this very moment wondering why windows are already being boarded up before a jury is even seated. We wouldn't be here if there was trust between the community and the police. So as mayor of this city, my job will be to have those hard conversations with whomever the chief may be and the FOP president, because it has to be a collective. We have to do it collectively to make sure that our residents know that their voices are heard. They have to be heard, and we can't just go along to get along. We have to do the work as a collective group instead of having one person telling our whole entire city what needs to happen. No, the residents have to be at the table. What needs to happen is stop boarding up windows before a grand jury is seated.
Thank you. And now Marco Somerville.
First of all, there has not been enough transparency in the Jalen Walker situation. And what should have happened, those police officers' names should have been released, and they were not released. The other issue needs to happen is that we need to understand that if I am the mayor, the chief of police would work for me. I do not work for him, and I would be telling him exactly what he needed to do. When I was the president of the Akron City Council, we had a bad chief of police that I didn't think was doing a good job, and I asked for his resignation, and shortly after I asked for his resignation, he did step down in that position. So I would not hesitate when I'm the mayor to do that, because I did that when I was a council person. We also need to make sure that we have issue 10. We need to make sure that that works. We need to make sure that the kinks and some of the problems with that, we need to work them out and make sure that we have transparency with the police department so this community can have confidence in this police department. And once again, let's pray for the Jalen Walker family.
Thank
you.
you.
They're ready to go through a terrible situation.
Thank you,
Like
Mr.
to
Somerville.
relive
Thank you.
that
Thank you, Mr.
situation,
Somerville.
And let's keep them in our prayers.
Thank
please.
you. Mr. Wilhite.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is we all learned a great civics lesson from issue 10. Anybody that sits in the mayor's seat going forward, if they don't understand that they have to be transparent and open to the community, there's going to be a lot more citizen referendums coming that way, and that was a very good thing. What I will do as your next mayor is I will make sure that Citizens Review Committee has everything it needs, human resources and financial resources, to do the job. It's a great opportunity for us collectively as a community to do a reset. Let's take a look at the mission statement and the vision statement of the Akron Police Department, and let's collectively as a community determine what that should be, what that should look like, so that the ladies and gentlemen on that police force and the ladies and gentlemen in every home in this city understand how we're going to take care of our own community and make sure that it's safe. That's the only way you're going to get to a transparent and open community, is if folks are at the
We're
table.
at time. Thank you. Mark Greer.
So you're never going to have transparency where there is no trust. And you're never going to have trust when we have our leadership in law enforcement putting one group of black pastors against another group of black pastors. We're also never going to have trust when, for one hand, we call on our community to wait until an investigation is complete, but the narrative that is put out before the investigation even begins castigates this young, unarmed black man and saying that he was responsible for his own death. How in the world is that going to build trust and transparency in our community? And then you don't shoot off so much tear gas that me, as a downtown resident, it filled up my apartment when people were peacefully protesting, because we know that the people from our community were not the ones breaking windows. Those were people from outside. So let's be honest about this. We have to make sure that we are going to actually build the bridges that our community has been looking
Mr.
for
Greer,
decades.
you are at time. Thank you so much. Shamus Malik.
In 2015, they had a mayoral debate. I was in the audience where you're sitting. They talked about the issues with the police auditor's office, which hadn't worked since 2007. They talked about independence, access, and staffing. He was part-time. He was part-time for a decade. In 2020, George Floyd was murdered. I was on city council. I spent a couple months writing this proposal for a citizens review board. I spent all of the rest of 2021, all of 2022, all of 2021 and the beginning of 2022 trying to get consensus. And people didn't want to support it. They said they wanted to, they didn't want to. It wasn't until after Jalen Walker was killed that there was enough to get it on the ballot. And I was proud to lead the fight for issue 10, but even then people stood in the way. People who want to talk about that it's valuable now. The people are still standing in the way. You need a mayor who will treat these issues with a sense of urgency. We have not faced the pain in the community for decades.
You're at time. Thank you. And Keith Mills.
So a lot of the time, like up here, I hear words. I just hear words. I've actually been pulled out by gunpoint by cops, okay, over a mistaken brand license plate, okay? I actually grew up with it's a us versus them type mentality. I don't know the officers. They don't roll their windows down. They just speed through my neighborhood. They do it right now. So, you need a mayor that actually understands that distinction, okay, that break, okay, because I've been there, all right? You need a mayor that's actually, not just, sense of urgency, but actually lived it and know it. And another part, I also fully believe that we need to lead with Akron people. We don't need to find somebody from Portland, import them to tell us what to do, okay? So we actually need to review that and get somebody who has lived in Akron, lives in Akron, to lead, okay? And that's for the chief of police. Promote from within. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mills. And now to our next poll question. Grab those phones. Are you aware that early voting is now underway and runs through April 30th? So fully 1/3 of you aren't aware that you can actually vote right now. But if you're like me, you're a diehard. You wait until Election Day. There's just something about showing up on Election Day. All right, we're going to keep things moving, and we want to go to another question related to public safety. Please share with us specific strategies you would use as mayor to collaborate with community members to build innovative and restorative public safety policies. And this one is important. What will be your first step toward restoring and rebuilding community trust between the city, its police department, and members of marginalized communities? And we will start with Marco Somerville.
I think the first thing we have to do is look at the makeup of the city, which is 30% African American. And when we look at the Akron Police Department, only 11% of that force is people of color. That is a concern and that is a problem. You need to have more diversity on the department because a lot of times when people from other parts of the community who become police officers in Akron don't know how to go into certain neighborhoods. And you need to have more African Americans and more women on the force so they can be taught how to deal in certain neighborhoods and understand that when they go into certain neighborhoods that these are really people and not animals. And we need to make sure that we reinforce that on a daily basis. I think we also need to make sure that the chief of police is coming from inside. The problem in the past has been that there's been nobody that's really been that good, but we need to grow someone inside. And when I become here, that'd be the first thing I would do. I would identify
You're at
5
time,
people
sir.
and put them on the track to be the next chief for this city.
You're at
be
time.
homegrown.
Thank you so much. Jeff Wilhite.
Well, as I mentioned, the first thing I would do is convene a citizen-wide group of a cross-section of the entire community. But most importantly, in that group of folks would be our young people, because we have got to look at what is troubling them, what concerns them, and listen to them, because our young people have a great desire to grow up in a community that doesn't have the violence and that structure with them. So we've got to bring them into the equation, reevaluate who we want to be as a community, and have a consensus so that the ladies and gentlemen on the Police Review Committee, so that the police chief, so that each of us as residents have a clear understanding of where we want to go collectively. But more importantly, we all have to have buy-in to make that happen.
Thank you very much. Mark Greer.
So we talked about, having our young people represented, and the fact is we've just witnessed with issue 10 and the Police Oversight Review Board how we treated our young black men who were the most disproportionately targeted. Amoka Ayakola was maligned. Look, I know a little bit about that myself when it comes to the city of Akron, but this man was put through the ringer by something he said on social media, and then we had to wait weeks until we finally got the last seat of the Citizens Review Board occupied by a young black male. Why on earth did we have to wait to just get one representative? Look, we have to make this so incredibly clear that as young black men, we are no longer going to be, we will no longer tolerate being relegated to the end of the line, the back of the bus, or the last seat of a Citizens Review Board, because you do not get to advance as a community without us. So when I look at what we need here in Akron, we are going to have to build transparency by having a civilian superintendent
Mr. Greer,
of our
you're
APD.
at time. Thank you. Shamus Malik.
It's very simple. Folks want their interactions with the police to be characterized with dignity and respect. We have 450 police officers in Akron. 250 of them are patrol officers who go from call to call to call to call to call to call. 10 of those officers are our neighborhood response team officers who don't have to do that, who can spend time doing foot patrols and building trust and building relationships. And the one in my ward does a really good job, but it's 10. If this is a community priority, and the community has been saying it for decades, It has to be a priority of the Akron Police Department. So the first thing I would do as mayor is make sure we fully implement community policing, to make sure every patrol officer in our police department is spending part of their time doing that proactive work that is building trust and meeting people from a place not of a 911 call or urgency, but of dignity and respect. It is a basic thing. It is something people have asked for decades.
Thank you very much. Keith Mills.
My sentiments will echo a lot of what you've heard already. One thing does stand out to me, though, is that you can say that we need more representation on the police force, but then you have to actually do it. Okay, words are just words, so we have to make incentivize why, or like not why, but actually getting people of color onto the police force. Make stuff more transparent. Actually go to the schools, recruit from the schools just like our armed forces do. Build a relationship with them. Make sure, just like Greer is saying, that you are one of us, like you are a part of our community. Okay, let's not just get from the words. I hate words. Let's actually do it. Okay, make it happen. All right, we actually need people to care, to build relationships in the community, just like I do at the school every day. Okay, I have students texting me while I'm away off of work, asking if I'm there today. Okay, telling me that, hey, some of the stuff personal because they know they can't tell anybody else. Okay, that's the kind of person you need as mayor who actually wants to get
Mr. Mills,
things done.
you're at time. Thank you. And Tara Mosley.
I first want to say that in over a decade, the new police academy has more women in that academy than they've had in a decade. And that is because an advisory committee was put together that looks like this room for that to happen. So we actually have minorities sitting in this current academy that actually looks like this room, finally. But it should have never taken this long. Look, if you go to our website, the very same things that are coming up now and I've been talking about from day one. We need to put police substations in the neighborhoods. There are some people who don't like that, but our police don't need to be downtown in a building. They need to be in those neighborhoods. I've called for park and walks a long time ago, way before I decided to run for mayor. I've called for these substations to be in the neighborhoods way before I decided to run for mayor. Our police officers have to be in the neighborhood. You can't ask for our residents to trust you when you don't even want to be there. Look, my house got shot up. It took the police 28 minutes to get there. 28 minutes. My mother was there by herself. They need to be in these neighborhoods.
You're at time. Thank you. All right. We have our next poll question. So grab those electronic devices. We would like to know, is this debate helping you as a voter make a more informed decision? Is this debate helping you make a more informed decision? Please vote now. Very good. 84%, 85% agree with the statement that this debate is helping you make a more informed decision. If you have a question that you would like to submit for consideration, please use an index card. We are not accepting questions that are submitted over the electronic app. So please use the index card, and if you do not have an index card, raise your hand and one of the team members will make sure that you have one. All right, we're going to go to our fifth question on violence prevention. Youth violence is a leading cause of death and non-fatal injuries in the United States. Homicide is the third leading cause of death among people aged 10 through 24. The majority of these homicides are from gun violence. As the mayor, how will you prioritize youth initiatives and programs to reduce community violence in areas that are historically marginalized? In addition, how would you provide funding and diversify the distribution of funds to grassroots community organizations to address violence prevention? We will begin with Jeff Wilhite.
I think the most important thing that we can focus on is that we value our young people, we give them hope. When you talk to a lot of young people today, they don't see a future. They don't have any hope going forward, and that's a tragedy. And how do we do that? We make sure that their community is free and clear of things that spark violence, vacant homes, make sure those are taken care of, well-lit areas, making sure that there are not places for crime to gather, and they see that day in, day out. Young people know when you care, and if we don't show them that we care, they don't have a way to go. There's no path forward. So that would be a very, very important way to start addressing that. But more importantly than that is with that value is to give them something to work towards. Youth employment programs, they've proven time and time again to be valuable. We need to fund those more in every possible way that we can.
Mr. Woolheit, we're at time.
Okay, thank you.
And now to Mark Greer.
So first of all, we need to make sure that the organizations that are boots on the ground in the community doing the actual work are the ones who are getting the money. Because we've had a closed door. It's been a small group of organizations, many of whom are connected to the city, and we are having so many organizations that are doing such impactful work that are not getting the assistance they need. And oftentimes the application process for these funds and these grants are so tedious that these organizations cannot get through the front door. We have to tap also into our faith community. Look, I'm a pastor's son, but it used to be that the first line of defense in our communities was at the church. We can't lose sight of that, because we can see real change happen there. And then also, we have to give our young people things to do. I actually remember growing up when we still had skating rinks, when we still had social
Mr. Greer,
dances.
We're at time. Thank you. Shamus Malik.
So in 2018, 2019, a lot of different organizations, including organizations represented here in the room, came together around this youth violence strategic plan. It's a really great document. It's really great ideas and models for implementation. It took the city 2 years to hire somebody who would help lead and implement that work. The organizations that came together around that have not come back together as that organization to this day. We have to treat these things with more priority and more urgency. The city got $145 million in ARPA money and said we're going to take $10 million of that and fund youth violence prevention work. We funded it a year at a time on a reimbursement basis, dividing it up amongst folks. Instead of saying, here's our overall goal, here's the things we said we laid out in 2018 and 2019, and work back from that. I think every third grader needs a mentor. Every young person needs to be connected to some kind of extracurricular. These things are not complicated. We have to take the things that we keep planning for and make them a reality.
We are done. Thank you so much. Keith Mills.
I'm gonna echo everything that Mr. Greer over here said. I completely agree with it. We need to step it up, and I'm going to add a little bit of education background in there. We need to build relationships with our youth. We need a closer relationship with Akron Public Schools. There should be no separation, okay? We should be treated as an extension from them, from all of our public schools and private. We need to make sure that we build relationship with our youth and that they can feel like they are one of us, okay? We have a lot of mental issues that are going on in our schools. We have a lot of things that there are gaps that need to be filled, okay? I am very mindful of that, and you need to be somebody who's always thinking of new ways to improve and to better the lives of our citizens, and I'm that person, okay? I'm always thinking, listen, I have ADHD, I'm serious. My mind is always turning. I am always thinking of ways how I can give back, how we can do better, okay? I'm in the schools every day, and we have these issues, so I know how to combat them.
Thank you, Mr. Mills. Now, Tara Mosley.
We had organizations in the community doing the work. We had organizations like The Womb. We had Stop the Violence in the neighborhoods doing the work. But instead of them getting the support from the city that they deserved, they were blackballed. So we have a lot of other organizations out here doing the work who don't get the resources. Some of them get blackballed. This is the dysfunction is why I'm sitting here now, because they're the ones doing the work and constantly being pushed in the back for those who go along to get along. And it has to end. When you have people who are in our community doing the work, give them the support that they need. I know they're in the community doing the work because you know what? Out of everybody on this stage, I actually live there. Been living there my whole life, so I know what's missing.
Thank you very much. And now Marco Somerville.
When I left home this morning, I live on Copley Road, so I do live in the neighborhood also. But I just wanted to say there are programs out there that work. And one of the programs that I know work because one of the people who's on the Issue 10 board is Brandon Costa, who's in the back. And he's a proud graduate and a participant of the Alchemy program, which is a super program that has developed young men, and they start in elementary school, and they follow those kids all the way till they get to college. And even when they get to college, they have a support system that supports them when they're in school. And they stay in touch and they work together. And they do it through mythological stories. They do it using drums. And it's an excellent program that works. And it's one of the programs that was tapped by President Barack Obama. And he invited Alchemy to the White House because it is a very effective program. And it's here in this community. And we need to make sure that they get the funding that they need to stay here and to save kids' lives.
Thank you, Mr. Somerville. Now let's go to our final poll question for the night. Based on what you are hearing from the candidates this evening, how do you feel about Akron's future? All right, our top answer is concerned, followed by optimistic. Unsure comes in third. And what that says to me is it is a reflection of why so many of you came out tonight. And so I do want to, I would be remiss if I didn't take this moment to thank all of you for your active participation, for the questions that we're going to get to in a moment, and for your engagement in this year's election. One of the things that we want to make sure that you take the time to do as you are reviewing your voter registration in advance of either early voting or election day voting, make sure that you check your precinct, make sure that you check your ward. Also, please note there are different voter ID requirements that are in place, and you still got time to make sure that you got that part tuned up. So just wanted to make sure to issue those public service announcements. And so we want to go to our next question on addiction and mental health. The drug overdose death among black men in the U.S. has more than tripled between 2015 and 2020. In addition, last year was Summit County's worst year ever for African American suicide deaths. In your view, what is the city's role in addressing mental health and addiction issues? And we're going to start with Mark Greer.
So mental health has been kept on the outside tangent for too long, especially in our community. We have to really also look at the huge impact that COVID has had on our young people, especially our minorities, because I was at an event at the Eye Care mentorship program, which my older brother Jonathan started, and Amy Wade was there, and she said that there was a significant portion of our young people who actually said that they don't have one adult in their lives that they can trust. That means that penetrates beyond the schools, but into the home. When we talk about mental health, we have to address the need of our children there at home. And as the city, we have to really lean into the organizations that touch the home, not just the school, and so we can provide wraparound support services to our most vulnerable populations. And look, we know what
Mr.
happened.
Greer, we're at time. Thank you. And now to Shamus Malik.
Mental health is such a critical thing. We have to cut through the stigma first and foremost. I started the day at a counselor's office, ending it here with all of you. You know, we have to find ways, Mark is right, to get to our young people. The way the city can do that best is with these CLC buildings that we built, right? We built these with the point of being community centers on the evenings and weekends, right? We have never fully fulfilled that promise. And if we as the city step up to the table with Akron Public Schools, we can do that and put not just mental health care in there, put food banks in there, put all of the different wraparound services that we see in I Promise schools in all of our CLCs all across this community. We can do that. We have to do it in partnership together. But there's so much red tape and bureaucracy. We have to be willing to do the hard work of engaging with APS and finally doing it, not just in one building, in this building, but all across.
Thank you very much. Now to Keith Mills.
Well, luckily, I used to work for Akron Public Schools, so I already have those relationships in place, okay? And I know the mechanics of how to get CLCs actually open, who to talk to, okay? Who's gonna unlock that door? I know who they are, and I know who has the building code, okay? So don't you worry, like you have to build relationships. I'm also all about building relationships, okay? And that's one of the ways we actually combat mental health. What really sticks out to me is at my school, you get 2 chances to visit as a student, okay, in my school for our mental health like clinic we have there. 2 chances until you have to come with insurance. So you have to think about how can the city close some of those gaps? How can we work with Portage Path? How can we work with other agencies to close some of those gaps and be more concerned than we are? Go past words. I see it every day. As you guys know, I'm a teacher in a high school with these issues, okay? I know how, like, I build relationships so that the fights on Instagram, I know where they are, okay? I know who films them. I know what's going on in the schools.
Thank you. Tara Mosley.
Russell Neal tried to bring wraparound services to City Council, and of course it was voted down, because if they don't like the author of resolution or legislation, they work to get those votes to make sure it's voted down. So he did put forth an effort to put money aside for wraparound services. Look, I am a mother of a son who has a severe mental health issue. I've been dealing with it since he was hit in the head at 8 years old, has traumatic brain injury. For the last 20 years of our life, we have dealt with his mental health and his addiction. So when we talk about this is personal for me because I've been there every step of the way. In fact, because of his mental health, people in this community, people in leadership have attacked my son. It has made its way to newspapers, and nobody ever asked the question, is Brian okay? See, this is the kind of thing that has to stop because it's not just my son. 1 in 4 person has a mental health issue in this community. Look at all these people in this room. Quite a few of us in here struggling. So we need to be intentional about making sure that we assist those who need the help.
We're at time. Thank you. Marco Somerville.
Particularly in the African American community, there is some stigma for people who may want to reach out and get help, and we should not let that continue to happen. People need to know that there's help out there for them. In this community, we have a number of resources. One is the Adam Board, and one is run by Amy Wade, who really understands our community because she's from our community. And she has money and resources to help young people deal with these mental health issues. We need to also turn to church-based organizations. And we'll talk about Pastor Jeff Dennis, who has minority behavioral health, which is another great resource for this community and something that we should always understand that there is help out there. You just have to go out and you have to get it. And we want to also make sure that young people understand that when they need someone, they need to look at someone in their community that can look up to and mentor and work with and make sure that they are able to get through these difficult times that they're living in.
Thank you. Jeff Wilhite.
The answer is in the ADM board. We tax ourselves to collect dollars to go into that organization, and they have a very healthy cash balance. We're very fortunate now to have Amy Wade in that directorship. She is understanding of the community, but we collectively have to let her board know that it's time to release those resources in a more equitable way across this community. There are organizations out there of trust that people trust and they can go to get the help, but they need the human and the financial resources to do that. We've got to make sure that we continue that effort and do that in a very positive way. And I would agree with everybody on this stage.
Oh, I'm sorry. You got 15 seconds. I'm sorry. I jumped the gun.
Seriously, we have to collectively, as a community, stop putting the stigma on mental health, because mental health goes to physical health. So when we do that, we'll make progress.
All right. Thank you so much, and my apologies. We are now going to turn to questions from the audience. These questions were submitted by attendees at tonight's event and selected by a panel from the Urban League. Our first question is for all of the candidates. Since the 1960s, Section 56 has allowed mayors in Akron to award contracts and bids without the approval of City Council or needing to make it public to the citizens. As mayor, how will you use or abolish Section 56? And we're going to start with Keith Mills.
So just from a citizen standpoint, just the idea that it lasted so long is pretty ridiculous. There's talk, anything over $50,000 has to come before council, and I'm completely for that. I think it should have happened years ago. And I don't know why the discussion wasn't happened years ago. I'm just very confounded by that. All that money that we just let go to waste and get, decided upon pretty much one guy. And we keep the same guys over and over again that we pay to hang around, and we think that they can help us. No, we can help us. We don't need to pay $150,000 to be counseled on how to make relationships. Come on, man. We have so many resources. We don't have to spend that kind of money. The average person in Akron, I think, makes like $34,000 for like a family. Just to imagine that down there, how much money is just being wasted. It is incredible. I grew up poor. I grew up on food stamps, trying to pay the rent, see if we can get evicted. You need somebody.
We're at time, Mr. Mills. Thank you so much. And now, Tara Mosley.
I need more than a minute. First of all, we need to follow our charter. Item 56, line 56, whatever they want to call it, should not even be there. They've been able to fool a lot of past council members who didn't even realize it was there as well. $121 million in consulting contracts that were paid out to people without ever coming to council is problematic for the city. And we're talking about just 2 years. I've actually asked for the last 10 years, still waiting on it. Can you imagine what has happened in the last 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years that we know nothing about? Yet, we have a housing crisis here in this city. Houses falling apart, crime running rampant, people begging for money, and we can never find money for anything, but we found it for these consulting contracts. Under my administration, it will be gone immediately. Let the council do the jobs that they've been elected to do. Send it to them for a vote. Doesn't mean they won't vote on it. Give them the opportunity to do the job that they've been elected to do.
We're at time. Thank you. Now, Marco Somerville.
Yeah, this provision has been around for 56 years. And now that it's election time, now it's come to the point where people are talking about that. There are members of council, members on this board who are running for mayor who voted for the budget every time, even though they never asked a question about what the personal service contracts were. Anyone, any council member, any person in the community could contact the city council and ask what contracts were let in Chapter 56. Now, we may need to relook at that, and the city council is considering doing that, and they may come with another better way of doing it. But there were members on this city council who had no idea that took place, and it's been around forever, and that information is available, and it's no misspent of the money. That's not the truth to what they're saying, the ways the money's been misspent, because it has not, because we are audited every year to make sure that we didn't misspend any money, and we haven't ever been audited or dinged on that.
We're at time. Thank you. Jeff Wilhite.
I think the statute needs to be addressed. I think there needs to be a cap. We do that on county council. We have anything over $50,000 has to go to the full county council to be approved. And there's a process that it goes through before it even gets to us to make sure it's vetted. I would work with the council and also get input from citizens. I think there needs to be some caveats in there, a hybrid, if you will, so that if something happens on an emergency basis, it happens all the time. A water line breaks or something like that happens, and it has to be addressed immediately. It can't wait 2 or 3 weeks to go through the process for council to approve it. So to keep the city safe and address issues like that, there should be some kind of a hybrid proviso in there. But at the end of the day, when that comes back to the council, that it's gone through the financial processes that it needs to go through to work. So a hybrid of what
We're at
exists.
time. Thank you. Mark Greer.
So Section 56 is just the tip of the iceberg, folks. And I can tell you, because one thing that is not actually available is that because of the funding source, you could have contracts that were funded by CDBG, and you would never hear about it because that doesn't go before council, and council wouldn't even know about that either. But I've seen it happen up close. I know what happens behind closed doors, and this is the status quo backroom deals that I am running to finally change, because this is what has kept Akron where it has for decades. So enough of the excuses for Section 56. We know it's wrong. It has to be abolished, but there are so many other layers. Let me tell you, this runs deep. And if you think that just changing someone in the mayor's seat or reshuffling a few seats on the cabinet are going to bring real change, that is never going to change Akron. We have to go to the root, and that is exactly what I will do when I'm elected mayor on May 2nd.
Mr. Malik.
I want to be really clear about something. I do what I think is the right thing regardless of whether there's an election. When I ran for council, people thought that I was going to be the mayor's guy because I had worked in the city law department. He was my boss's boss. I've thoroughly disabused anyone of that notion with Mayor Horgan. Right? I voted against $145 million coming to this community because I said there wasn't any input from council and from the community. I did that when there wasn't any election coming up, when there wasn't any open vacant seat. I voted against the budget last week because there's over $100 million over the last 2 years that has been spent without being bid, without being approved by council. We don't need to turn it and look at it and try to find a different way of trying to, we know it's wrong. We have to be willing to acknowledge that. And when we know better, we do better.
Thank you. We now want to go to our second question from the audience. How can we hold you, we as citizens, hold you as mayor accountable? And what can citizens do to fight against corruption in our city politics? We'll start with Tara Mosley.
I will have an open door policy. There will not be any security at the front door when you come into City Hall to come and talk to people. Yes, you need to have wands when they come into the council floor. I know some people perk their eyes up, but it's uninviting. As soon as you walk in, you got to walk through security. You got to sign in. You don't even have to sign in over at the police station. So why are you signing in at City Hall? It makes no sense. So we'll start there. You have to be out in the community and be present, not sending your handlers to do your work for you. So that's how you become accessible to everyone. Go out and be amongst your people. That's easy to do. I've been doing it for 9 years and before that as a bailiff, as a community person, being out here doing the work. You start there and you build those relationships with the community. So we start there, getting rid of all officers standing at the door. You have to sign in. And you know how you hold the council responsible? Show up to city council meetings. Show up. They get nervous when y'all show up. Just show up.
We are at time. Thank you so much. Marco Somerville.
I think the way you're accountable is about being in the neighborhood and being in the communities and interacting with people, being involved with the block clubs, being involved with the organizations, being involved with the church community, and just being involved in other organizations that interact with the city of Akron. The thing we need to realize that the issues that we need to deal with are very difficult to deal with, but we must find ways to talk about these issues. We must come together and figure ways to make things better. City Hall will have to have some type of security. You just can't have people walk in anymore. Unfortunately, it's nice to do it, but we can't do it. Even when they have the city council meetings, they do not allow people just to walk into the city council. They have police there. They have to walk through metal detector. So to say that you're going to have an open policy and everybody can just walk in, that is just not the way we could do it. Life has changed. Unfortunately, we have people that will hurt people now. We have people who are going to schools and shoot and kill kids.
We're at time. Thank you. Jeff Wilhite.
Well, I think the most important way that you hold any mayor accountable is you participate. Participate in the community. This right here, right now, tonight, is how you hold a mayor accountable, because you collectively have come together. You have shown that you have concerns, and they're going to have to pay attention. You hold a mayor accountable by an issue 10. When they don't listen, you go out, you circulate petitions, you do what you did with issue 10, because that's how you hold your government accountable. Make sure they understand that they're hearing from you. So that's how I'll be accountable to you as mayor. Anytime you want to come together like this, I'll be there.
Thank you. Mark Greer.
So the way you'll hold me accountable is by looking at the results based on the promises that I put forth. So I'm going to promise you that I'm going to rebuild Copley Road. So when you look out 4 years from now and you see the east side of Copley Road have more vacant lots than businesses, that's how you'll hold me accountable. When I say that I'm going to actually increase minority contractors at the city, well then in 4 years, I'll show you the balance sheet and the invoices for the consultants that we've used in every city department, and I guarantee you they're not going to be the same names that you've seen for the last 30 years. That's how you hold me accountable. You'll look at the results of what I'm actually talking about, and the way you hold your government and your elected officials accountable, you vote for the ones who actually change things, and you stop voting for the ones that don't.
Thank you. Shamus Malik.
Yeah, I think that voting is one part of accountability, but it is one small part, right? Accountability has to be built into the process at every point. It's not just when elections come around, right? You don't just say, we'll wait till someone comes and grabs me by the shoulder. We'll wait to see when someone comments. You build that into the process. So when we talk about land use development and White Pond, you have to have a process by which the residents are asked for their opinion at the start. And that has to be in the city charter, so it's not an option based on whoever is the mayor, right? When you talk about policing and you have a citizens review board and an advisory board, it can't be, these are the voices that we're afraid of. These are the voices that are too scary for us. You have to be willing to go out and get the voices and face it head on and really listen and then act. It's not just about elections, folks. It's about building a city government where everyone wants to be a part of the solution.
We're at time. Thank you. And now Keith Mills.
So it goes a few different ways, okay? I know I did, but you probably got a mailer saying, here's who you should vote for. We got to stop that. That's how we got here in the first place, okay? That is legit. Where you go on cruise control, oh, they'll take care of it. They won't. You know they won't, or you wouldn't be here right now, okay? That is facts. We have to stop that. We have to become informed. It is, go to vote411.org, look up people, follow them. You have to actually be engaged to figure out who actually has your best interest. You got to do it right now. Check the campaign finance reports. Look at people. Figure out what they're doing, what they're really up to. Not like, oh, well, okay. No, look them up. Hold them accountable. Listen, I was grown up the right way, brought up the right way. If I'm not like, you call me, that sounds silly. I'm going to call the mayor. No, because the mayor's not king. You call me and you tell me I'm messed up, and I'll fix it. I will be in the neighborhoods. Just because I get elected doesn't mean I go away. I am for you. I actually serve you. It is not the other way around, okay?
Thank you, Mr. Mills. We're going to go to our final question for the evening, and this is under the, I call it the category of vision for the future. Here we go. You don't have to be the mayor to help the city of Akron. We all have a part. If you lose your race, will you pick up and leave Akron, or will you stick around and do some of the work that you're campaigning on? And we'll start with Marco Somerville.
I will continue to do the type of work that I've done in this community. Tonight, you're in this building because I advocated for them to move here. When they moved here, they had no one to raise their money. I raised $5 million for this facility, and I'm very proud about that. I'm proud of the fact that I was concerned about that person who got killed going to school. 485 kids busted out of this neighborhood. I had a school attached to this building. I also built a gym, not a small gym, not an elementary-sized gym, but a full gym, so this community could take part and use that gym to help keep youth violence and give young people a place to come and conquer and be safe and have a place that they can call home. That's what I have done. That's what I will continue to do.
Thank you, Mr. Somerville. We'll now go to Jeff Wilhite.
Whether I win or lose this race will not deter my love and commitment to this community. I've been doing the work before I decided to run for mayor, and I'll continue to do it after, in every way, shape, and form I possibly can, because the one thing that I'm absolutely dyed in the wool in belief is belief in this community. We overcome. We are a community that has a big heart. We prove that in so many ways over the years. From the time that the tragedy happened in New York, what did we do? We came together as a community. We bought ambulances, we bought fire engines, and we sent it to our friends and neighbors in New York. We do that all the time. When people are hungry, what do? We get together, the Robert Fords of this community, and Forever Our Children. They collect food every single day, and they make it available for people in this community who don't have that. That is something that I will continue to do. I will continue to house homeless families with children, no matter if I'm still the director of Family Promise or not. I will always be committed to this community.
Thank you so much. And now Mark Greer.
So I will not leave this community. You know, before I got in the race, I had people actually tell me and try to keep me out of it. And they actually told me, you better not run because they're going to run you out of town. Well, my mother and father raised me differently, and I'm built for this because I don't run from a fight from anyone. And I'm not going to run from any fight in the front lines that are here in the city that I call home, that where I was born and raised, and that I love. I am going to fight for this community no matter what, but I am telling you tonight, you need to elect the fighter on this stage that is not going to back down no matter what happens. That's who I am.
Thank you. Shamus Malik.
We got 26 days left. If you haven't voted, I hope you get a chance to. I don't know what life looks like on May 3rd. If I don't win the election, I hope that Tara will give me a job. But look, we all love the city of Akron. Everybody in this room loves the city of Akron. I'm here after May 3rd, regardless of what happens. We love the city of Akron because of the people who are sitting next to you. Right? Everyone in this room inspires me. We have everything we need to build this community right here. We just have to do it in a way that's better coordinated, in a way that we are building a shared vision for where we're going to go, that we're taking these priorities that have been there time after time after time after time, and that we are actually making meaningful progress and implementing these things we've always talked about. We can do that. I promise we can do that. But if you don't believe me, I'll still be here after May 3rd.
Thank you. Tara Mosley. Oh, no. Keith Mills. I'm sorry. Crossed you off too quick.
Well, don't cross me off that quick. I wouldn't work on the corner of St. Clair and 154th unless I was about it. Okay? That is facts. I go up there every day to change lives, and I'm not going to run. I don't know if you noticed or not, but I'm a pretty big guy. Okay? And I will throw down on one real quick. I have 3 awesome little kids in the back. I'm not going anywhere. They are going to be raised in Akron. They're going to probably go to Akron U. They are Akron people. Okay? They're right back there, and they're my support, and they're freaking amazing. Okay? I have houses in Akron. My dad lives at our old house. You know, I've been an Akron kid since I was born. I'm born in the city. Why would I run? I've been a fighter my entire life. Food stamps, government cheese, getting evicted. Okay? Homeless, GED, master's degree. Okay? You know what I mean? I'm going to keep on going. And I've got a lot of people from different walks of life that say, hey, man, you real, and we need you to stick around and keep knocking down those barriers and keep at it and be real for the people of Akron. So I'm not going to go anywhere. Why would I?
Thank
No
you.
sense.
Thank you. Thank you. Tara Mosley.
Yes, Shamus, you can come work for me. You'll be an awesome chief of staff. Hold me to that. Look, I love this city. I've lived here my entire life. I've never been one of those people to say, I can't wait to live here. My great-great-grandfather, David Mosley, built a house on Baird Street that my grandparents, Luther and Ruth Mosley, who lived in, who had my mother. We've lived in this community our entire life, my family and I. I want to build a better city and neighborhood for my grandchildren to want to stay here. 6 of them are here, and I'm hoping the other 6 will come. But that all comes with making sure you have someone in office who understands this community because they've been a part of this community. I've never said I've wanted to be anywhere else but in Akron. And I've always said, I wish my dad was here to confirm it, I've always wanted to be the mayor of this city since I could remember. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, it is now time for each candidate to share a closing statement. We'll proceed in the opposite order of the opening statements, which means we will begin with Jeff Wilhite.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the opportunity to be here. You know, my hope is that you'll consider me on May 2nd. But I've got to tell you, turning around and looking at that graphic where 63% of you are still concerned by the ladies and gentlemen that are on this stage, I entered this house tonight full of optimism, and I'm not leaving this house without that optimism because my concern is for all of you. You're telling us loud and clear you want change, you want something different. Anyone on this stage that has entered into a mayoral race understands the personal sacrifices that you make and the time it takes away from your family. But there's not a person on this stage, I'll guarantee you, that doesn't love this city. We all just said that and confirmed that. But I know that every one of you in that audience love this community, and you'll do everything you can to make sure it's right. So I guess after that poll, I've got 26 more days to make you pull that, or color in that box for Jeff Wilhite for your next mayor.
Thank you, Jeff. And now Marco Somerville.
Yes, we want to make sure that when we select the next mayor, we select someone who has actually done the work, someone who's been involved, someone who has experience. I started a business from scratch. I got a loan from scratch. I developed the city council as the president and got more people involved in that situation. I hired young people to work with me at the city council and had little internships because I knew if kids got exposed to what we were trying to do, it would change their life and put them in a much better position. And let me tell you, this job is not for someone for on-the-job training. It's just too complicated. There's too many things you have to look out for. And if you don't understand business and money and politics, you can't be an effective mayor. But the most important is that you have to always be honest with people, always tell the truth, and always move the city forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Now to Josh Schaefer. Or, I'm sorry, Tara Mosley.
So if you want to know more about our platform, I encourage you all to go on mosleyformayor.com. Look, I am running on things that I have talked about and worked on for the last 9 years on council. I have served on almost every committee except for 2 on city council, and I've chaired most of those committees. I know what it takes to run this city. I have the experience to run it. I have the temperament to run it. I don't operate from a bully pulpit standpoint. I have an open door policy for each and every council member, regardless of what ward they're from. And that's what it takes to be a good mayor. You have to be willing to talk to each and every council person, even when you don't agree with them. The reason I've been able to bring forth more legislation and resolutions than anyone in this race is because I've been able to go and talk to people that I don't even agree with half the time, because it's about moving this city forward. And anything it takes to move the city forward, I'm your person.
Thank you. Keith Mills.
So where do you even start? Facts are facts. Some of the people running for mayor have been doing the work. The problem is that, are you happy with it? Okay, think about it. You should be concerned. Why do you think I'm up here? I looked around, nobody else is standing up, so I stood up. So I'm like, because I'm concerned. Do we really need people around that have been around for decades? Do we need people around that have been around for terms and terms? And I've done this, I've done this. Have you seen it in your lives? Have you seen it in your lives? Like, so I try to keep it not dirty or anything, right? But you need to look around and see what you've seen in your life, okay? And if you're happy with it, okay? You really got to think about it. This is your community just like it's mine, okay?
Thank you. 15 seconds.
Oh, 15 seconds. Okay, so, yeah. You're like, since being a little kid, I see the same things over and over again, okay? I went to St. Paul Catholic School, was closed down. I drive down
All right.
Copley Road, it's, the same.
And there were the 15 seconds. All right. Shamus Malik.
As I said at the beginning, we've all watched our city struggle. We've watched people leave. We watch young people leave as quickly as they can find another opportunity. If we don't do things differently, we will continue. Even the most experienced leader, even the most well-intentioned person will just manage decline. That is the reality. I have a track record of trying to do things differently, of pushing for actual change and getting it done. I will never stop working hard for you, but more importantly, I will never stop working hard with you, alongside you. Every one of the 190,000 people in this community can be a part of making our community safer, a part of making sure our children grow up with amazing education. We can all do this together, but only if we are willing to believe in something different, something better for our community.
And now, Mark Greer.
So when we look at what Akron has been calling for, there's a reason why we've seen the same things happen year after year, decade after decade, election cycle after election cycle. We have to lean into this moment and seize the time, because we can't let this opportunity for change pass us by, because how is Akron going to look in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? We've had the same players calling the same shots in this city for a long time. And those people who have been calling the shots have not been accountable to the community which they serve. I am in this race because I am going to assure you that when I am elected mayor, that is going to come to an end. I'm going to stop the political retaliation and retribution that has been a fixture at City Hall. We are going to make sure that people are not blackballed out of opportunity, and organizations, just because they don't support someone politically, are no longer going to be cut out of government contracts.
We're at time. Thank you so much. This concludes tonight's mayoral forum. Now, please join me in thanking the candidates for their participation. And I want to particularly recognize the candidates for their willingness to serve this community as Akron's next mayor. Early voting is now underway at the Summit County Board of Elections from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. weekdays. If you choose to hold off until Election Day, don't forget that it is Tuesday, May 2nd. Be sure to check out the Summit County Board of Elections website to locate your polling place and be in the right location on Election Day. People fought and died for the right to vote, and we urge each and every one of you to exercise your ability to do so. On behalf of the Akron Urban League and all of those who worked to organize tonight's event, a sincere thank you for your efforts. It has been my pleasure to join you all, and I wish everyone a pleasant evening.